harder, I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynch is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one that can get me.
11-0, 9 KO. The best to do it right now in the game is to take over. Shout out to BN Boxing News.
Hey, girls, continue out there welterweight champion of the world. Everybody go follow BN Boxing News.
Greetings, boxing fans. This is Nick with BN Boxing News coming at you with the Gary Russell Jr. and Mark Magsayo fight recap. Yes, sir. LGB Token affiliation. Let's go, Brandon Token. Hey, man. Hi, big boss, man. Salute to you. Salute to you. Much love. Thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for tuning in. Let me do a quick fight recap. As we all know, Gary Russell Jr. Lost his belt last night versus Mark Magsayo. I mean, it's if you look at the bottom banner going across, there was lots of discrepancies, lots of other boxers and fans that had a lot to say after, tweeting and just saying, how they felt and who they thought won. And if you don't mind dropping that below in the chat, let me know who you truly think won. If you think Magsayo was the true champion, put it in there. If you think Gary Russell Jr. was robbed, put it in there. If you think it should have been a draw, if you think it could have went either way, go ahead and put it in there. If you hadn't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to my channel, okay? Before we begin. Okay, yes, sir. Okay, you didn't see the fight? All right. LGB Token said he didn't see the fight. Well, let me tell you what I saw. Let me tell you what I saw. Now, to begin, let's say this. Gary Russell Jr., prior to the fight, he told the world that he was injured. He told the entire world that he had an injury. He didn't tell us what the injury was. And not only on top of that, and let me say, I'm not coming out with any kind of excuses for him. I'm just stating the facts. He let the world know that he had an injury prior to the fight, and he still decided to go through with it. So totally, if the injury had an effect on him, it's his fault because he decided to move forward with the fight. So as the rounds begin, right? Let's go to the fight. As the rounds begin, you can actually see that Gary Russell was aggravated or had some type of right shoulder or right hand pain, because in the fourth round, when he used his right hand, you could see him kind of like gnaw in pain. And listening to the commentators, it was, oh, Gary Russell Jr. is hurt. Can you just, Magsayo just hurt Gary Russell Jr. No, that guy didn't even land a punch at that moment. It was him trying to use his right, and which brought him in pain. So, as you can see, Gary Russell basically was fighting this guy with only one hand. I mean, all night long, he was just blocking and parrying this guy. I mean, magnificent defense used by Gary Russell. He tried to still go forward with the fight with just one hand, just the left hand. I mean, he was just double and triple jabbing with the left hand. Magnificent defense, getting out of the way. This guy was a very fast boxer. Prior to the fight, they were saying that he had a lot of power, but we didn't see that power because, of course, Gary, he never did drop a one-handed Gary Russell. Okay, and this fight was going tit for tat as far as I could see it. Gary Russell will have a good round. The next round, Magsayo will have a good round. I mean, yes, definitely, Gary showed a lot of heart. Gary did show tremendous heart, man. And as you can see, they was going tit for tat, and Gary Russell Jr., right, basically um, was just using his defense and his legs the entire fight. And he didn't throw as much as Maxayo. Maxayo did throw way more punches than him. And let me put out there, I don't know if some of the judges gave Maxayo credit for some of those punches, but a lot of those punches didn't land. A lot of those punches didn't even land. You know, that's the issue that I had. They was giving him credit for punches that was missing, for punches that was blocked. So I'll say like this here. It was a tremendous hard showing by Gary Russell. Gary Russell stayed in the fight because the rounds was going tit for tat. A lot of swing rounds, man. Rounds that could have went to either fighter. But if Gary Russell is the champion, I would think you would give a swing round to the champion. And it don't look like it was so. You know, but both fighters did have tremendous attributes. I mean, Magsayo had a lot of speed. Gary Russell a lot of speed. Great feet. I mean, just getting out of the way. And I think it was a great fight. I think, though, I do say that if Gary Russell was 100%, he would wash this dude. Gary Russell would wash this dude. This dude couldn't even stand in the ring with Gary Russell. You know, Gary Russell was able to stay in the fight for the entire 12 rounds. And the decision did go to Mark Magsayo. He is the new featherweight, WBC featherweight champion of the world. Gary was kind of disgruntled. He was kind of, you know, he thought maybe he done enough. But like I said, the judges, they was looking at, I guess, the landing percentage. Magsayo was landing on Gary more than Gary was landing on Magsayo. And even though the rounds was going tit for tat, you know, if I had to call a champion, you know, because I had to look at this again, man. If I had to call it a champion, I would say that Gary edged the fight due to Gary being a hurt man and Gary showing the poise, showing the determination, and still landing on this dude throughout the 12 rounds with just his left. I mean, he pretty much fought this fight one-handed. You know, you got to give this man major credit. Oh, yeah, Gary Russell coming back for him after recovery. But I don't know if they have a rematch clause. You know, these days, these dudes don't even do rematch clause. And it comes back to bite them. So I'm hoping Gary was smart enough to do a rematch clause. I'm definitely hoping he was, you know, smart enough to do a rematch clause. But these, you know, Gary Russell fought a hell of a fight, man. I take my hat off to him. You know, I'm not going to sit there and shit on him. You know, he had the belt for 6 years and 10 months. So he's hell of a reign of that WBC featherweight belt, you know. And I think he's going to be a two-time. I think he's going to go back out there and get his belt because I don't see where Magsayo could have handled Gary Russell Jr. with both hands. You know, if he didn't have that right shoulder injury or whatever, that right side injury to where he couldn't use his right jab, he couldn't use his right hand. I think if he had that, I think this fight would have been an easy fight for him because as you can see, this dude was longer than Gary, taller than Gary, he even looked bigger than Gary, but Gary still was able to handle him. Yes, he had the belt. Gary had the belt for over 6 years. He had the belt for over 6 years. Or about 6 years. I think it was like 6 years, 10 months, if I'm not mistaken. He had it since 2015. So it was going on 7 years. And finally he lost it. You know, he lost it, you know, according to the fight last night. But if they had a rematch clause, I'm sure he's going back and get his belt. I don't see why he won't go back and get his belt. You know. But let's continue. You know, Magsayo, man, he did what he was supposed to do. I mean, he handled his business, man. But we have to keep in mind he was fighting a one-handed fighter, and if a one-handed fighter can give you that much of a challenge, what would the hell he do when he has two hands? You know, he probably have been blocking your shots all day and landing on you instead of you landing on him. You know, yeah, definitely, man. Gary is a hell of a boxer, talented boxer, and I kind of seen spurts of Pacquiao with this Magsayo guy, the way he was just dashing in, real quickly, but nothing like a real Pacquiao. Nothing like a real Pacquiao. But I kind of seen little dashes of him just trying to dash in. Uh, I'm sure Gary's going to avenge this particular loss. No doubt. Look how Gary was just standing in front of him, bro. Just standing in front of him. This guy couldn't even land on Gary at times. He couldn't even land on Gary at times. Gary was too elusive. He was too elusive. He landed on Gary, but most of the time he was just throwing punches and he couldn't even land on Gary. So it was a great fight by both guys. I mean, who do you think really won the fight? Do you want to take your hat off and just say, you know what, Magsayo won this fight? Or do you want to say that it could have went either way? Or do you want to say it should have been a draw? Or do you want to say that Gary edged the fight? Totally up to you. Yeah, everybody loved Pac-Man, bro. Pacquiao was a hell of a fighter. So, when you put somebody's name in the same box as Pacquiao, shit, that's a hell of a statement. You know what I'm saying? But on a real deal, according to the judges, Magsayo came out victorious last night. So the new WBC featherweight champion of the world, Mark Magsayo. But always feel free to tell me below in the comment how you feel, who you think won the fight. I think it was going round for round. I think that it was a very close fight. I think that personally they had some swing rounds in there, and either fighter could have taken the swing rounds, right? The very close rounds. But you would have to give it to the champion. If it's a round that you really couldn't decide on, you got to give it to the champion. All right? You got to give it to the champion. And if that was said, I would think that Gary should have edged this fight. But they gave it to Magsayo. Hopefully they got a rematch clause and they go back at it again and show us who's the real champion. I mean, now this dude got a blueprint on Gary Russell. Maybe he might do better. Maybe Gary might make all the adjustments and come back in the ring and destroy this dude. We will have to wait and see. But personally, like I said, Gary should have never went up in there hurt like that, man. He should have went ahead and just pushed the fight back until he can, get himself right. I mean, I heard he had a lot of problems for his family situations, and then, the injury. All that comes with the territory. All of that comes with the territory, but I still want to salute Gary Russell Jr. And I want to salute and congratulate Mark Magsayo being a WBC featherweight champion. We will have to see, man. If he's a true champion, he'll defend that belt. If he's a true champion, he'll defend that belt. And that's just what I want to see. I want to see him defend that belt versus Gary Russell Jr. And if he beat Gary Russell Jr. a second time, hey, man, same way I came on here and made this video today, I'll come back on there and make another video giving him his grams, letting him know that he's the true champion and he fairly and squarely beat Gary Russell Jr. But for right now, I seen a hurt man, a one-handed man with tremendous defense out there just showing true ring generalship and commanding the ring versus the man that had it all, 100% man, for what we know. One-handed man fighting a two-handed man. And to me, I was amazed. I was like, damn, this dude really is good. And the fight was very close. I have to say it. The fight was very close. The fight could have went either way. I saw it either way. But because of the swing rounds, I would have said, you got to give it to the champion. You got to give it to the champion. You got to give it to the champion. The swing rounds. But, one judge had it for 114. Other one had, I think, 115. 115, 112, you know, they threw it to the head like that, giving it to Magsayo. So, you know, it is what it is. Gary got to come back and just avenge his loss. You know, once you avenge your loss, man, it's all good. It's okay to lose. Just brush yourself off and try again. And I'd like to tell you, thank you very much, LGB Token Affiliation. You know, thanks again for joining in the league. And I'm going to go ahead and bail out. With that being said, it's a Nickel Being Boxing News. And as always, thank y'all for your support. Thank y'all for everything y'all do, man, to support my channel. Make sure y'all comment below and like, subscribe. If you hadn't already liked and subscribe, okay? And with that being said, man, always thank y'all again. Thank y'all again for your support. I mean, I get tremendous amount of cash apps. I get tremendous amount of support by you guys, and I'd like to thank y'all. I'd like to definitely thank y'all for that. All right, LGB Token, appreciate you, brother. Thank y'all for your support, man. I need it. And with that being said, y'all know how we go. Y'all know how I do. Peace, and we out of here.